Welcome all to the Saturday morning live stream. A little trouble getting set up for some reason. Just a little bit of delay here trying to get on, and some reason it would not let me go on. I had a little trouble, and I do not know what the problem was. But sorry for the delay. But here we are. We are going to be starting, and I do not see the share button that I saw for Facebook, so I apologize. I'm going to have to, for those of you wanting to watch on Facebook, I don't know what happened to the share button for that um, event. So I will try to locate that here, and I do not know if I can find it. Let me see. Boy, don't see any boxes anywhere where I can send it to. Oh, there's the share button. Hold on, let me get this set up on Facebook. Boy, I tell you, one thing after another. So give me a second. I've been having trouble all morning trying to get this set up. I can't believe it. You try to do something and it just doesn't work. So let me do this for the Facebook people. It's what you get with a live stream. You get all the mistakes. Okay. 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 Looks like I got Facebook finally set up. Anyway, welcome everybody. Sorry for the delay. Sorry for all the trouble that, it just happens when you try to get online at a certain time. It doesn't work. And then you have to boot everything up and then try to get back on, and then it starts to work, and then everything you had set up, you have to reboot back in. It's just a mess. Oh well, it's how it is. I'm using the headset today. Greg Morgan's here. I'm using the headset today because I've been doing the other mic, but I have no way to adjust to fix my voice on there, because with the other mic, my voice is too bassy. My soundboard that I do have is old, and I don't have any way to put a digital mic to it to adjust and get the bass off my voice so I don't sound like I'm in a tin box. For some reason, the headset doesn't do that. Also, it depends on the device you're listening to. Some devices, it sounds perfect. So we're going to go ahead and get right into the book of Daniel. I know I'm delayed. I got an appointment to run to, and I'm already running late because of trying to get started. So let's go ahead and pop up the Bible study notes here. We are going to be studying Daniel chapter 7, Daniel's vision of the four beasts. And I called today's message The Four Beasts Rising. The Four Beasts Rising. So that's what we're going to look at. In other words, to grasp the book of Revelation and what Jesus and the apostles said on the end times, one must look at the book of Daniel that foreshadows future events from past events. This is a principle of the Bible that many people don't realize. There are prophetic patterns. There are templates. It's a better word to put it, templates. It doesn't mean it'll happen the exact same way, but it'll follow a pattern. This pattern is pointed out in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 15. Which says, that which has already been and what is to be has already been, and God requires an account of the past. And I'm reading from the New King James versions of the Bible in these studies. So that which is already, that which is, has already been, and that which is to be has already been, and God requires account of the past. In other words, this sets a stage for, if you understand Bible prophecy, you can look at patterns, and the patterns will repeat in the future. What Daniel talked about repeated during a particular time with the secluded Greek took over Palestine. Antiochus came in there and set up a thing in the temple. I mean, that's just a foreshadow of a future event that'll happen that Paul writes about when the Antichrist goes into the temple. That's a foreshadow. In the book of Daniel, in order to understand revelations and Bible prophecy really fully, you need to understand what Daniel's talking about. Learn how to read Bible prophecy, and that's what I'm trying to help you do. And you do that by paying attention to everything, the meaning of names, the history behind what's going on, word meanings, all that, grammar, all that's important, and also what symbols represent. And in the book of Daniel provides us a case where interpretation is parts of the interpretation are there, but not all of it. Okay, so we're going to look at this in a different way. I'm going to be following most of the normal commentaries uh, over the years have come up. I have nothing really new to share, but it'll be new to some people because I talk about name meanings and how they help with the prophetic flow, pointing to future events and everything like that. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. So the book of Daniel does just that. So Daniel chapter 1, we're going to look at Daniel chapter 7, verse 1, and it starts out in the first year of Belshazzar. So what happens with Daniel? Daniel takes a step back in time. In Daniel chapter 6, Darius the Mede took over the rule of Babylon for Cyrus. Okay, the Medes and the Persians. The Medes and the Persians were that, and the Daniel statue is the silver part. Okay, I'll talk more about that in a minute. So he's looking back in time. So Daniel's take a step back in time to the last king of Babylon, who ruled Babylon for about 3 years, and he is thus considered the last king of Babylon. We saw him in chapter 5 review about he held a feast on a pagan holiday. I'm not going to go too much into this pagan holiday, but this pagan holiday commemorates a feast of the dead. It's still practiced in the occult world today. I'm sorry, folks. I'm doing this early in the morning. I don't have time to clear out my throat. So, boy, I'm getting off a bad start already. This is what live stream does. Excuse me. Oh boy, I wish I can do these in the middle of the day. Really do. So we have held on the eve of the capture of Babylon by this Persian kings, okay, and the Persian Medians that came over. So there was that statue, it was a handwriting on the wall. So it was held on a pagan fall holiday commemorating the Feast of the Dead, where they pour out libations to the dead to earn favor with the gods. In other words, what Belshazzar did there, he was invoking his God, saying that his God that conquered the head god of the Jewish people is stronger, and so you pour out these libations and use the utensils of the temple that Nebuchadnezzar took, and you desecrate them in order to show that you have dominance over that god, and you get all the gods on your side to lift the siege of Babylon that was going on at the time when you had this feast. Okay, the historians Herodias and Xenophon speak of this feast at the time. According to Herodias, the ancient historian, Babylon was captured while besieged, and while they were inside there, they were caught off guard during a festival. So you have historic reference from ancient sources telling that Babylon was captured while the besieged in the city were caught off their guard during a festival. And Xenophon states that Cyrus had heard that a feast was going forward and he planned to use it like that. It happened on October 12th, the year 538 BC. There is a prophetic message even in the meaning of the names and the background history here. The main meaning of Belshazzar is the prince of Bel, or may Bel protect the king, depending on it means both, but the Smith's Bible Dictionary says it's the prince of Bel. That's what I'm kind of going with, and mixing it with Hitchcock's may Bel protect the king. Bel is the head deity of Babylon at the time. And so there's a background story to that too. That was Marduk at the time. So chapter 7 prophetically deals with the future Antichrist, literally the last prince of Bel, Marduk, who was a dragon. Okay? Again, the fall of Babylon happened on October 12th, 538 BC during the pagan festival for the dead. But also on October 12th in the year 538 on the Jewish calendar, it was known as the Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot. Booths, the Feast of Booths, the Feast of Tabernacle, the Feast of Sukkot. This is one of those background stories here, and just keep tracking with me. And that during the Jewish festival that happened on October 12, 538, and they do it every time in Israel, is where one leaves their homes to live in booths for 7 days to commemorate God's provision in dealing with them during the Exodus, wandering in the wilderness, and their victory into the promised land. So prophetically, this falls in line with the chapter concerning the Antichrist, who will be the last prince of the devil, Bel, the dragon, and a period of 7 years, which begins with God's people living in their, begins with people leaving their homes. Okay? You're following me. This fits with the idea of a pre-tribulation type of rapture, as well as those Jewish folks and those who will miss the rapture, because I do subscribe to a partial rapture, okay, who are alive during the 7-year tribulation, who are called to leave their homes and go through a time of trial and testing before entering in the 1,000 millennial reign that Jesus promised them. That's also promised in the book of Revelations there. In Matthew chapter 24:15, it says, "Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, whoever reads it, let him understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on his housetop not go down, take anything out of his house. And let he who is in the field not go back to get his clothes." So you have the idea here in the end times with the name Belshazzar in Daniel chapter 1, and Jesus quoting Daniel, the book of Daniel here. And you have that. And then you have the people during the tribulation. They're going to be the last prince of Bel, the Antichrist, and there's going to be during the feast of Sukkot, the booths, tabernacle, where people leave their homes for 7 days. And here in the tribulation, you have 7 years. And before that, there's going to be what I determined from the scripture, and I stand strongly on, is a partial rapture. Not every Christian is going in the rapture. I'm sorry, they won't. If you don't believe me, read Revelations chapter 2 and 3, which actually speaks of what's going on inside of the church in the end times. The church is a divided church into 7 segments. 7 is the number of wholeness and soundness. The idea of the number 7 in the Hebrew letter system, it's a picture of a plow. It's the idea you can beat your swords into plows or your plows into swords. It's a form of warring to produce wholeness and balance. In other words, you plow and you plant and you grow things to produce balance and harmony. Sometimes you have to fight for it in spiritual warfare. That's the idea of the number 7. People try to simplify it, say it just means perfection, and you miss it. So there's 7 churches. And Jesus is standing in front of the candlesticks, the menorah, in Revelation chapter 1, giving a prognosis of the end time church. You're tracking with me. So he's doing that. And all of a sudden, and you look at the prognosis, it ain't good. You have a divided church who planted in what grows division. Where division and strife is, there is every evil work. And so you have 5 segments of the Christian church that don't cut the mustard. You have the Ephesus church. I call them the Ephesus nitpickers. They're great heretic hunters and all that. But they are, let's straighten out that camera. But they are terrible with other things, folks. In other words, they fall short. And they left their first love. In other words, in their heresy hunting, they love that more, and they'll slay the innocent along with the guilty. They don't care. They set themselves up as the only arbiters of truth. Many of them like that. They're there. Just look on YouTube. You can find them by the bucketfuls. And so you have the Ephesus nitpickers. Their candlestick is going to be removed if they don't repent. And then you have the Pergamos church where Satan's throne is. Satan's throne. In other words, they're bringing the occult into the church and justifying it, that God approves of it. We have a lot of that going on in the church. If they don't repent, God's going to fight against them with the sword of his mouth. And so they miss the rapture. Okay, and then you have the Thyatirians. It's all about dominionism and taking over everything. And they want to take over all the 7 mountains of influence. They're following Alice Bailey's occult. And I can quote Alice Bailey, and I have in my video. If you go on the Daily Renegade 2.0, I just posted a video there, and I talk about this, and I show you the document from Alice Bailey, what she is actually the one that channeled the idea and codified the idea of taking over the world so that you can count it over to the Antichrist or the occult Messiah. The same thing happened in the church, and this is what happened in the Thyatirians. They have the same doctrine of a woman who teaches Jezebel, is a Jezebel who's wants to control all aspects of government, family, and all this stuff, and take it over and hand it over to Jesus when he comes back. Same doctrine. They're going to go through the tribulation. Says it pretty plainly if they don't repent. Then you have the Sardis church. The Sardis church is a dead church. They're a very busy church. They have a lot of things going on, but they're dead in their faith. They do not believe Jesus is coming back at all, or everything's going on at the same. They're just dead in their faith. They're just a dead church. If they don't repent, their names are blotted out of the book of life. Read it however you want to read it. I'm just quoting over this. Then you have the 5th one, which is the Laodicean church. Everybody thinks everybody's a Laodicean because we're in the Laodicean age. No, we're in the end time church age with 7 groups of church, with the divided church fighting each other. Don't believe me? Open your eyes, smell some coffee. Just look on the internet. There's proof ample to prove my point. Strife and evil, every evil work, the church is divided. And so you have a Laodicean church. It's all about health, wealth, and prosperity, and rich and be in need of nothing. If they don't repent, he vomits them out of his mouth. Not a very pretty picture. You have 2 churches, the persecuted church who will make it, and you have the Philadelphian church. And I go into great lengths to explain that on that video. So you have two groups of people who check out okay, but they're called to overcome. In the Philadelphian church, they're promised an escape from the wrath to come. They're promised an escape. That's why I believe in a pre-tribulation partial rapture. Not everybody's going to make it in the church. And so this would apply, Matthew 24:15. When you see the abomination of Daniel spoken by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. The Apostle Paul writes of the same event here later. And then, let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not go down, take anything out of his house, and let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. So there you have it. You have in the name Belshazzar, the last prince of Baal, referring to a prophetic event that will happen in the very first verse of Daniel, and I'll prove it here in a minute, where you have during October 12th, during the Feast of Tabernacles for the Jewish people, where people leave their houses and set up a tabernacle in the wilderness, so to speak, for a 7-day period. Here in the end time, you have a 7-year period. So the church, the people who are going to be raptured are going to be gone and be with Jesus. It says in the book of Revelation, the saints are coming with them. So those are the saints. The saints have to come somewhere, okay? They're coming with them. And they're going to make war against the dragon, the last prince of Baal overcome. And it's all written in the last chapters of the book of Revelation about that event. So now back to Daniel chapter 7, verse 1. And it says, in the first year of Belshazzar, and let me stop here. Scholars bring a lot of confusion over who Belshazzar was. He was actually the grandson, or was he a son? That's what the debate is. It doesn't matter here. The fact is that he was in line to be the last king of Babylon. And you got to understand the custom of the East. And some people in the United States carry this custom. A lot of First Nations people do. It was to call anyone in the bloodline as a son or an heir, even a grandson or a great grandson or a cousin, you can call them son. And there's nothing wrong with that. That was a custom of the age at that time, and a lot of places in the East still have that. So let's look at this for a moment, lay a prophetic historical foundation for chapter 7. So you had Nebuchadnezzar, who reigned 43 years, okay? And then you have, and time goes backwards, he reigned from uh, 604 BC to 561 BC. And Nebuchadnezzar means may Nebo protect the crown. A pagan, a fallen angel, I call, a fallen god, who would be the scribe and the lawgiver here, the one who helps, who would be actually Marduk's son or the Bel's son. Okay, so in other words, this is all about protecting the bloodline. And you have this guy named Emil Marduk. It means servant man of Marduk. He's also known as Evil Marduk. He reigned 2 years after that. Then you have this guy Nergal-sharezer. I can't even pronounce it. Nergal is the ancient Mesopotamian god of famine and destruction. We know him as Apollo in Greek. And this means a man of or a follower of, or I can't quite get the definition in exact English for this, the man of, follower, servant of Nergal. Okay. And he reigned 4 years. And then 550, then you have Labashi Marduk. It means, may I not be brought to shame, Marduk. In other words, the dragon, don't bring me to shame. He reigned 9 months. And then you have Nabonius. Nabonius was the son of Nebuchadnezzar. His son was Belshazzar. So it would technically, on a bloodline level, it would be Belshazzar would be the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar, but he could call him a son, the last king of Babylon, because that's exactly who he was. And Nabonius reigned 17 years. And you also got to understand these people would set up and put their sons as king over a city, while they would go into another realm of the empire and rule. And they would leave their kin bloodline to rule over cities and place them in the role of a secondary king. So Belshazzar was a secondary king, so to speak, from the historical records of Babylon for 3 years, while Nabonius was the actual ruler. Now Nabonius was an interesting character, and I'll tell you about him in a minute. But Cyrus captured Babylon on October 12th in 538 BC. And so Belshazzar was literally the king, the last king of Babylon. The picture is prophetic. You have the devil who's going to bring forth the Antichrist into a city or the world for a period of time. He's not actually becomes the king of the world, but it's only for a brief time. Just the same idea that they had in the city-states, where the king or the emperor would leave his son in charge, and the son would be the king over a city or a province. You get the picture. They share the rule. That's the idea here, and it's very prophetic if you understand this stuff. So let's break down the meaning of the proper names of these characters. Okay? In the first year of Belshazzar, the prince of Bel, may Bel protect the king, the king of Babylon. I'm going to stop here. Babylon comes from a root word Babel, which means gate of the gods, with a suffix meaning the Y-L-O-N add to it. It means mixture and confusion, which is the goal of occultists, is to mix into God's order and reshape it into the devil's image and likeness, including mankind. They tried that in Genesis chapter 6, okay? So that when you think of Babylon, it comes as the gate of the gods, where the gods can come down and rule and reshape the world into their occult image and likeness by bringing confusion and mixing it up by confusion and chaos in order to do so. That is the root meaning of Babylon. In Hebrew, Babylon was called Tintur, the seat of life, or E-Kai in Mesopotamian lore. Now, Kai is Kai is the Mother Earth goddess in Mesopotamian lore. It is the mother goddess who I think most likely is Ninharsag, whose son was Enlil in Sumerian mythology. Because Iki, not Enki, but Iki, which would be that mother goddess, who is known in Book of Revelation from my research, and other people can debate this, and that's fine. It's not an exact science here, so this information for you. Key are in this entity is found in the Book of Revelations. Okay, and also it's found in really described in Job chapter 42 as Leviathan, Ninharsag. The story of Ninharsag was, and my putting everything together, would be a goatfish entity who was known as Azazel, and goes by another name, Azazel. And I explain why just briefly. This entity was cast into the abyss in the book of Azazel for corrupting humanity. Leviathan is in the abyss under God's control. Okay. And in the mythology, this is the chaos monster, the one who brings chaos into the world. And so, and it was, this entity was known as the god of the mountains, the Mother Earth, and it was also known as the one of the crags, living in the craggy parts of the earth. So you have this entity there, chaos mentioned here in Babylon, and part of the name, and the Hebrew name that comes from this, meaning that I won't get into all the details, but just it's part of the Babylonian system to bring chaos and disorder into the world, is what I'm trying to say. The bottom line idea, without a lengthy discussion, because I'll get off on that in a minute here, is that the goal is to raise up a champion who will overthrow God, and raise up a prince of Bel, a dragon, or is known as a solar calf, for the purpose of mixing the devil's will to reshape the world and humanity into his image and likeness with the help of Ninharsag, Leviathan, to help. Now, I want for you to think for a second, and I'm about to say something here. When I study these old pagan gods, which are fallen angels in my opinion, I used to teach that Satan's kingdom was divided. And a lot of people still, and scholars to this day, will teach that. So I was teaching it too. Then one day I came across, the book of Matthew, I think it's chapter 11, where Jesus said that Satan's kingdom is not divided. A kingdom divided against itself will not stand. He's direct context talking about the devil's kingdom, the devil casting out Satan, casting out Satan. It's impossible. The devil's army, the devil's minions are not divided, nor are they infighting, nor are they a mafia type organization seeking power and overthrowing each other. I had to really, decide, am I right about there's a lot of infighting with the devil's kingdom, or is Jesus right when he says or is Jesus right when the kingdom that's divided against itself will not stand? In other words, the devil's kingdom is not divided. They walk lockstep with each other. They're in cahoots. They have sworn by mutual oath. I can prove that through some of the other writings. They are not divided. They're not infighting, and they're not a mafia family. Okay. And so I had to humble myself and say, Lord Jesus, you're right. I'm the one wrong. And so all you scholars out there who think that the Satan's kingdom is divided and they're infighting, trying to get power and take over everything from each other, you got it wrong. I'm just telling you. Is Jesus right or you're right? And I had to come to a place in my life where Jesus is right, I'm wrong. So I asked Jesus, what is this all about? Then he opened my eyes up to it through a little bit of study here, and it took a little time, but I studied it. I taught on it since then. Is that what happened, basically, to put it in nice terms? The fallen angels are these old gods who were the superheroes of their days, and people wanted to act like them. And so what they were doing in their storylines is teaching humanity how to act, how to be divisive, how to be infighting, how to have wars. Ninharsag, our Mother Earth entity, taught war. Okay, I call Ninharsag grandmother. It's not female. Trust me, it's not. This female in the old gods are Think military. That's the second in command. So the second in command to the devil, Ninharsag, is the grandmother. Then you have the mother of the gods called Ninlil. Then you have the young warrior princess called Ishtar. So give you an idea. You have the triple goddess there. I won't get into all that right now. And their whole job is to bring somebody out of the abyss to Ring, the last prince of Bel, as a matter of fact. They're not divided in their goal, but they teach division and strife and every evil work to humanity to emulate how they act. And that's the storyline. When you realize that and you go, wow, these are fallen angels, they're deceptive and they're liars. And then you can understand, no, Satan's kingdom is not divided, but they teach division to humanity through their storylines. And all of a sudden, all the stuff makes sense. I'm just saying that for whoever listens to this. You can just want to let you know that. You got to believe Jesus on that. So Daniel chapter 7, verse 2 says, Daniel. And Daniel means God is my judge, and the full name means this: God is my judge, so I can bear the judgment of God faithfully declared. I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up a great sea. The four winds often denote a time of judgment brought forth by four angelic beings. You see it in the book of Revelations too, where they restrain and they hold back the winds from blowing. Number 4 means in Hebrew letter numeric system an entryway, a door, a pathway. That's the root meaning. Thus, what's being brought out here is an entryway for something to happen. And in context, the stirring of something new, an entryway, entering is it's something coming out of the sea. And sea often symbolizes all of humanity, nations, and the chaos as well. So here we have the nations and people of the world being stirred into a chaotic state to usher in a new era, a pathway to follow in history. That's what that represents. Daniel chapter 7:3. The four great beasts came up out of the sea, and four great beasts came up out of the sea, different from one another. Interesting. So you have another four mentioned in context. You have four beasts bringing forth the pathway to a future, leading to a future event. That's what this is about. Add 4 into verse 2 with 4 and out of verse 3, and 4 plus 4 equals 8, and 8 in Hebrew numeric, it means new beginnings. That's the root meaning of new beginnings. So the vision is about setting the stage, laying a foundation for something new, a new entry to break forth in the future that concerns chaos and judgment. So let's further to see if this is correct, if the Bible numbers actually do have some importance in their meaning, because the Bible numbers, and you need to learn how to do this, it's like a different language. It has rules of grammar, and you can't violate it because it always sticks with the context of the scripture is found in order to make sense out of it. And you can't just twist the numbers to make them say anything you want. It won't work. I can tell you that. So there are four beasts. Each beast is represented in Daniel chapter 2 about the statue. The four kingdoms to bring forth that fifth new kingdom that never really gets started. They call it the fifth kingdom of clay and iron in the feet. So let's look at Daniel chapter 2 statue. You have the head of gold, which represented the Babylonian kingdom, the chest and the two arms representing the Medes and Persian empire and bringing people together, okay? And then you have the bronze thighs, and if you want to say quads too, your thighs and quads, well, bronze, which represents ancient Greece and what they brought into this mix. And then you have iron, which represents Rome, and then you have the feet of clay and iron, which represents something coming from the iron of Rome. They call it a revised Roman Empire. I call it something else. It's the Prince of Bells in what they're doing. In other words, you're mixing iron with clay. Clay is always about humanity. So this is about mixing nation states with the iron will of globalism. It's all about world dominion, taking over the world. Okay. And the ancient pagan idea that Nebuchadnezzar knew about was he had the bloodline, and through his bloodline, or this royal bloodline, of humanity that came from Genesis chapter 6, the Nephilim. Somehow all this will fit and usher in the last prince of Bel, who will rule the world, and who will put the iron will of the government and globalism with the nation states through oversight. That's the idea. And when that statue begins to walk, Jesus comes back and makes mush out of the whole thing. Got to understand that. And because the statue correlates with the four beasts here. Daniel chapter 7, verse 4. The first was like a lion. The first beast was like a lion and had eagle's wings. Babylon was seen as a lion. So was Nebuchadnezzar. Was seen as a lion with wings. It was a lion like griffin, if you want to know the truth. And in fact, Jeremiah chapters 4, verses 5 and 10 identifies Babylon as such a lion. It does, because it's dealing with the fall of Jerusalem and the taking captive of the captives by the prophet Jeremiah, which is in context. In verse 5 through 7 or 8 there, it says, declare in Judah and proclaim in Jerusalem and say, blow the trumpet in the land, city, gather together and say, assemble yourselves. Let us go into the fortified cities. Set the standard toward Zion. Take refuge. Do not delay, for I will bring disaster from the north and great destruction. Verse 7, the lion has come up from the thicket, and the destroyer of the nations is on the way. He has gone forth from his place to make your land desolate, and your cities will be laid waste without inhabitant. For this, clothe yourself with sackcloth, lament, and wail, for the fierce anger of the Lord has not turned back from us. This is in direct reference to Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar coming down and destroying and laying waste to Jerusalem and taking captive the people. This also set the prophetic stage for future events too, which Paul writes about as well, and Jesus spoke about when he, the one who brings the abomination, who brings desolation as well in the future. So let's get back to Daniel chapter 7, verse 4. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings, and I looked up, its wings were plucked off. And it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and the mind of a man was given to it. Nebuchadnezzar is identified with the head of gold, as well as the lion, whose wings of pride were broken off to humble Nebuchadnezzar to trust in God alone, and he was given a new heart of a man, and he recognized who God is. Nebuchadnezzar is the one who had the golden dream of reshaping the world by human pride that seeks to control the entire world for world dominion, to, in other words, set up through a bloodline to rule everything. Nebuchadnezzar was humbled in Daniel, in the book of Daniel, we read that, and he was given a heart of man by going nuts and eating grass for 7 periods of time, after which he came to a senses. This can also represent prophetically in-time humanity that is left after the Great Tribulation, a very small group of people. The vast majority have died in the tribulation because of their pride, and only a few remain during the millennial reign of Jesus on earth. At the end of the reign, in Revelation 20, mentions that Satan is released from the abyss again, and the people then are tested. What happens after that is really not clear. I don't have time to get into that. Looks like some sort of final test, and I can find it in scripture, but I'm just throwing that out there for you just so you'll know what I'm talking about. So you have Nebuchadnezzar who's being proud, so you have this whole thing. And you got to understand, Daniel's statue is all connected. Yes, they all build off each other and they influence each other, ushering in a new era. And the beast coming out of the sea speaks of the same thing, 4 separate beasts. Okay, just keep following me. And verse 5, and behold, another beast, the second one like a bear. He was raised up on one side, had 3 ribs in his mouth between his teeth, and it was told, arise and devour much flesh. The bear represents the silver chest and arms of Daniel's statue, which represent the Medes and Persians. The 3 ribs represent the 3 main countries they conquered, which is Lydia, Babylonia, and Egypt. To raise up on one side represents the Persian part of the empire as a dominant partner over the Medes. The Medes means the middle ground. So, in other words, the Medes were the middle guys, the middlemen, and literally. So you had King Cyrus, the Persians were the dominant party, and you have the Medes, the go-betweens. So that's what that represents. About every Bible commentary I read talks about that. And so you have three ribs, and scholars debate over the meaning to what three ribs mean. The best way to understand what ribs mean in the Bible is look in the Bible and its context. Genesis chapter 2:21, God made woman from the rib of Adam. Job chapter 40 verse 18 describes Leviathan ribs like bars of iron. Hosea chapter 13:7-8 mentions three of the same beast and ribs broken upon and ripped open so a lion can eat and devour it. Okay, I'm not going to get into all this. I'll read Hosea 7 verse 8. So I'll be like them, a lion, a leopard by the road. I will lurk and meet him like a bear deprived of her cubs. I'll tear open their rib cage, and there I will devour them like a lion. Wild beasts shall tear at them. I'm not going to go into what that means. It just take too long. But those are the areas that talk about ribs. So this indicates in Hosea here judgment, and also represents the influence of Leviathan, the chaos monster, and also refers to what I think it really means about having three ribs in there, because I understand through historical analysis what the Persian Empire actually did. They were making a new humanity out of humanity. That's their idea. The goal of the Medes and Persians was world dominion, governed by reshaping humanity into a utopic arena where all is well, a blended and mixed together form of a new humanity in order to redeem humanity. That was the Persian way. For example, Cyrus let the foreign captives go back to their own land. Cyrus did that for the Jewish people, sent them back. Okay? Made a decree. They found a cylinder, Cyrus decree, an old clay cylinder with Cyrus's actual decree that all people who were taken captive and were slaves building these cities were able to go back to their own countries. So this was, we're going to be nice, we're going to be benevolent, we're going to do this for your good, we're going to reshape humanity to be a kinder, gentler world. So you have the golden-headed one world utopic dream of Nebuchadnezzar, one world rule by benevolency and reshaping. So you have three ribs. One to reshape those three countries that they conquered to be a part of the Persian Empire of, better put, it's all groovy, baby, a new utopia. That's the idea. The intent was a redemptive mercy shown to all so that they join in league and allied with the Persian Empire, who rules all and who will crush any rebellious who do not want to assimilate to their ideas, to the empire's rules of justice and social equity and equality. That's where that comes from. The statue in Daniel chapter 2 is about the foundation upon the New World Order, which we call it now. And so let's look at this a little further. You have the golden-headed dream of ruling the world by the silver arms, bringing people together, factions together into the club to reshape humanity into a new image and likeness, a synthesis. And then comes the next foundation needed for the New World Order, which is Daniel chapter 7, verse 6. After this, I looked up, and behold, another like a leopard with 4 wings of a bird on its back, and the beast had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. The leopard represents Greece and Alexander the Great, who by age 33 conquered the world. He died at 33 years old. Think of it. He conquered the entire known world in the Persian Empire. He had 4 wings. I'm not sure what type of wings they are, but or what they actually represent, other than swiftness, like most commentaries talk about, because Alexander the Great was very swift in his conquer. He conquered the Persian Empire with 30,000 troops, armies of 100,000 men. This is historical record. You can check it out. So another part of wings is seeking prey and conquest and the quick spreading of Greek culture, philosophy, religion, and ideas in all the known world way back then. The 4 heads of this beast represent the 4 generals who took over and divided the Greek Empire into 4 separate parts. This is historically accurate. I talk about more of that in chapter 8 here, what happened about these 4 generals, but not just be getting off on another subject if I did. So the Greek Empire is the thigh of bronze on the statue and the leopard here in this text. And it's about bringing Greek justice and ideas into the world, to bring Greek culture, bring the idea of Greek government and philosophy, and codifying of its religion into the world. It built roads, and Greek became the common language of the known world. So you had the foundation of bronze, the idea of a benevolent tyrant king. This is the idea of a Greek government. I'll tell you what their idea of democracy is. You have a benevolent tyrant king, okay, um, who rules through an elite class of people in order to create utopia where everybody speaks the same language, has the same philosophy, has the same ideas. Sound familiar? It should. We're living in part of this stuff right now. And so that's the idea of the bronze. It's bringing justice. Everybody will think the same, look the same, smell the same. We'll all be Greeks. We'll all be a new world citizen. We'll all be global citizens, all right? So you have this benevolent tyrant king who will rule over his ruling elite over the mass of people. So you have the three foundations laid for world dominion. You have Babylon, a one ruler from a royal bloodline that comes to rule the world, and you have the Medes and Persians that seeks to mix and blend and make a new humanity for humanity's own redemption. And you have the Greek, where all people be of one mind, will, language, culture, where all share the goal of the elites have over government, commerce, education, military, entertainment, who are all in sync with the benevolent tyrant king to ensure his justice and judgment remain supreme and no one rebels. Think of Greek government and his ideas of it as Plato's Republic, where you have a benevolent tyrant king with a world of elites, with everybody else in the middle, and a small little new emerging middle class of merchants and who help the people, and you have the police and military to keep everything in order, and the rest of them, the vast majority, are your serfs. They only exist to support the elites and cater to their whims. That is the idea, the world of the perfect world. We're seeing that philosophy today in the New World Order. Now we come to verse 7 and 8. After this I saw in the night visions, behold, a fourth beast, terrifying, dreadful, exceedingly strong. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke in pieces, stamped what was left with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before, and it had 10 horns. This speaks of the Roman Empire. Every commentary talks about the iron of the statue being the Roman Empire. This correlates with that. This is the Roman Empire. The fourth, terrifying, dreadful, and exceedingly strong, had great iron teeth. Okay, it speaks of the Roman Empire, which ruled the world by its iron will and crushed all in its ways. It was very pragmatic, and it was always using laws and making laws in order to break existing laws so they can get away with murder. That's basically the iron will of Roman law. They borrowed from the other three kingdoms the best of their philosophies and ideas and added to all those other things from Greek and from the Persians and from the ancient pagan Mesopotamian religions and stuff with their iron will to rule the world. The Roman Empire was brutal and it enslaved millions. Slave labor reached its full zenith back then. You had 10 horns, who are 10 kings who arise from this empire after its fall, who seek to move the world into a one world government headed by a bloodline leader. The 10 kingdoms here basically are your elites, okay, representing that, dividing the world into maybe 10 economic trade zones or something like that. You have 10 kingdoms, rules and dominions where these elites can free trade with each other, so to speak. I'm just throwing this out there for you to think about. And then, see where I'm at. So in verse 8, I consider the horns, behold, there came up from among them another horn, little one, before which the three of the first horns was plucked up by its root, and behold, in this horn were the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Verse 8 is speaking of a one world ruler who will arise. And I'll talk more about this next time because I will not have time to go through the entire chapter. For now, Stay tuned for next message on next Saturday when I talk more about this little horn and all this stuff about the beast that's going to rise. For now, just know that Daniel is dealing with the foundations of all coming under a one world government type system of a one rule, uh, one rule under a one world leader. Okay, one dominant ruler rules them all. This is brought out in Revelation chapter 13, verses 1 and 2, where it speaks of one beast rising out of the sea, correlating with Daniel's vision. But the beast in Revelations chapter 3 is mixed together with all the parts and body parts of these four beasts as one combined beast. I'll read it to you. Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard, his feet were like the feet of a bear, his mouth was like the mouth of a lion, and a dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. The 4 beasts of Daniel have become one beast. The foundation stage is set. In Daniel's day, this is talking about the foundation of it, how it's all coming about. In the book of Revelation, it's all come together. So in Daniel Revelation chapter 13, verses 1 and 2, the beast has come together. Please note, I'm going to end with this, that Babylon comes from the root word Babel, the gate of the gods, with the suffix, the LON on it, for simple simplicity, mean mixture and confusion, which is the goal of occultists, is to mix into God's order and reshape it into the devil's image and likeness, including mankind. So you have the 4 beasts. They want to take these 4 types of governmental systems, ancient ways, those ideas, to reshape the world into their image and likeness. So you have synthesis here. Alice Bailey and Foster Bailey, the occultists there, talk about synthesis. I think that's Michael Ford. I'm thinking Michael Ford did too. I know, as Aleister Crowley and a whole mess of these other wackos out there following these all these new age people. They talk about synthesis. Okay, synthesis, mixing together. And you have in here the image of synthesis in Revelation chapter 13, 1 and 2, concerning the 4 beasts of Daniel. So that tells me the book of Revelation is when everything is mixed together. There's going to be a mixing and shaping and forcing of things together upon the will of the people, and the Prince of Bel appears, known as the Antichrist, the little horn. Well, folks, with that, folks, I know people simply do not realize this one thing. This is what people would fail to realize, is that for the Antichrist to appear, there first needs to be laid a foundation, and he needs a people to help build the foundations left over by Babylon, Media, Persia, Greek, and the Roman empires in order for the Antichrist to appear. In Bible prophecy, and I've been guilty of this too, so I'm taking the mote out of my own eyes, I always taught that the Antichrist suddenly appears and he's a miracle worker and everybody follows him. He comes out of nowhere. Then I started reading some of the stuff that the Lord had me read, and I found a bucket full of stuff. No, the occult world is looking to initiate the world into occultism. They're building a foundation. They're looking through initiates, or working through a people. Now I'm going to think for a second. Here you had God who chose the Jewish people in order to have a race of people who Jesus can come from to save the world. Okay, so that he made a promise to Abraham that Abraham would have his progeny will be as the number of the sea. So you have a foundation to work from, a people. The occult world has a foundation of people to work off of. And the whole idea through the time of Daniel, when he said that to the end times, is build this occult foundation for a one world government with a one world ruler to arise and reshape the world and make it a so-called the occultic utopia, which is really not a utopia. It's actually ultimate slavery and deprivation. Anything good and noble is considered the enemy, and anything debased and wicked and perverse is defined as good. That's the occult utopia. And so people have this wrong concept. The Antichrist will come up, snap his fingers, and never. No, yes, people laying the foundation. Alice Bailey channeled this. She channeled the entire plan of these things, and so did Foster Bailey and a few others. They channeled the entire plan of this foundation, how it works, what to do. And you have people in here who are following this stuff, and they have it together, folks. We're living in that time where things are becoming very close to the end, where you have this mix and bringing together these philosophies and ideas to build a better world through the iron will of Roman law. And if you don't follow suit, we're going to crush you. Okay? And it's all about entitlements and enslaving people for entitlements, bred in circuses in order to get them what you want, so you get your whims. You turn the entire populations against each other to fight each other over the slightest provocations. Some of the things we're seeing today in America as well as the world. If you don't follow suit, they're going to crush you. That's the idea of Romanism and Roman law here. In order to influence the nation states to comply with a one world government. So the Antichrist to appear on the scene, the foundation has to be laid for this. Daniel chapter 7 is talking about the foundation. Revelation talks about it when it all comes together. With that, I'm going to end for today because I have to go to an appointment in a few minutes. So with that, I don't have much time to chat. I just have a few minutes. So I hope you got something out of this. I didn't ramble. I hope I didn't confuse you too much. I hope you enjoyed this. I just have a few minutes left. Okay. Okay, walk. Okay. TD says, wow, talk about good timing. Praise you, Father. Help Brian's throat, please. Yes. And when I wake up in the morning, when you get older, you got all this congestion. I got up really super early, 2 hours early, and I thought I took a shower and took steam myself and thought I got it out of there. But when I start talking, it happens when you get older. Geez, I just never knew that when you get older, it takes a while to get going in the morning. When I'm younger, I just get up and go. And here I have to get prepared. Greg says, how you doing, Greg? You are correct. They work together, but instead of working together in love, they work together motivated by hate. They hate the flesh. You got it right, Greg. Okay, yep. TD says, I'm 50. I know. He's laughing. Seems like when you get 50, you wake up in the morning and it's like, where did all this stuff come from? Well, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream because I will have to get going here. I'd love to answer some more questions. I'm sorry I got off a little rough start, but, logging on was a little more difficult than it normally is. Okay. Michael Day Ridgway. Hey, brothers and sisters. Hey, Michael. I don't know if you're joining us right now, but we are going to be ending. Michael, I'm going to have to be signing off because I have an appointment to run to in just a few minutes. I don't have much time. Okay? No, you didn't miss the entire broadcast, Michael. All you have to do, I'm going to end the live stream, come back on. I'll put it up. You'll be able to find it easy. You'll see it. Just go to the live section on the YouTube page and just watch the whole thing from the beginning. It's going to be there so you can repeat it and watch the whole thing. So you haven't missed it. Well, you all be blessed because I have to go to this appointment and I will be back. And some people ask, what am I going to the appointment for? My wife and I are going to go pick up a tree. We have a tree that died in our yard several years ago through a heavy frost. During this lockdown for our entertainment, we pulled a stump. We dug around. It took about 3 days and we pulled a stump. Now I got a big hole. I want to put a tree in there. So I have to go get this tree. All right. We'll talk to you guys later. You be blessed in Jesus' name.